We haven't really built any more houses. We haven't built any more social houses. So in terms of housing, which is actually one of the biggest things facing young people at the moment, how do you actually keep a roof over your head? How do you move out of your parents' bloody home? A third of young people live with their parents still. I mean, this is the problem of social mobility. You just become dependent on your parents. So they have to be rich, otherwise you won't survive. And if they're not, then tough, right? So which party is talking about that? None of them. Except for maybe the Green Party, obviously. Thanks. Yeah, Adam. Yeah.
Thank you, Shiv.
Yeah. Out of the three main parties, that isn't there. So, I wouldn't say vote for a party in that sense, of the three main parties. I mean, it becomes very difficult, right? Then you have to build something out of that to actually develop that policy view. And that's a slightly different thing.
Lisa, we have a gentleman here who's involved with the Labour Party himself. He's setting up the Kent Young Labour Group. I think that's right. But he says that young people as a whole are disconnected from politicians.
Yeah.
What have you done wrong?
Lots. I think actually you put your hand on it, your finger on it quite well, in that if any of you are going to stick around for the last session today, the graveyard slot that I've been allocated, I'm going to talk a little bit about this, and I think about one of the things that Ellie mentioned, that where is the voice that is given by the mainstream political parties to people who have a vision of society that is fundamentally different from the one that we've heard basically during the course of most of my lifetime and probably all of yours. What I would say is that before I came into Parliament, I was a local councillor in Hammersmith and Fulham, and I had responsibility for our housing situation there, in opposition, unfortunately. The debate about housing was absolutely alive and well in Hammersmith and Fulham, and it is up and down the country. And actually, Labour councils were leading the way up and down the country on that. What I didn't see was that translated then into national politics, and that was part of the problem. And that's actually one of the reasons that I stood for Parliament, is because I wanted to see that gulf closed. What I'd also say to you is that political parties were always broad churches of opinion. That's what they were formed to be. That's what gave them their strength, the debate and the dialogue that we were able to have. They still should be. They still can be. I'm going to talk a bit about it later on, so if anyone can stick around and bear it, you'll hear more about that.
Thank you. Adam, you wanted to jump in on this one.
Yeah, I just think it's really important to understand what's going on here. No one is apathetic. To be apathetic means you don't care about yourself or your family or your community. People are alienated. Over the last 30 years, the main decisions about our lives have been moved from democratic spheres, from our local authorities, from the government, to the private sphere, to the market. And so people make decisions now through the market, and that's a real problem. But people aren't apathetic. Young people are alienated, and it's important we understand that distinction and don't let the right tell us that people don't care.
Go ahead, Liam.
I think that's absolutely right, but I think we're in danger of narrowing this debate down far too much. This isn't just about political parties. It's any membership organisation, actually. There's only 36% of young people involved in membership organisations, whereas there's over 60% for 45 to 65. And I think it would be wrong if we frame this debate on we have alienated young people from parties and structures, and what do we change to get them back in? Because actually I think it's that young people are organising in a way that's not about structures. I've never seen someone who'd say they are a member of 38 Degrees, but they feel like they are taking action through it. I don't actually think many people I've met from UK Uncut, they rock up to whether it's setting up a hospital in a bank or whatever the action is, they take part in it and they go away, but they don't say they're a member of UK Uncut. And I think it would be wrong and disingenuous to say that if only we fix something, they'll come flocking back to us. And that's why I disagree slightly. I agree with Ellie that it's absolutely right to look through the lens of class on the policies being implemented. I think that's right. But I do think when it comes to how you organise, generation is important. And that's actually because it's inherently linked to class, isn't it? If you look at our structures and student associations, we are starting to do research into this, but we have very little that can genuinely call themselves working class. If you look at the UK Youth Parliament, the UK British Council, the things that we hold up as these things that empower young people, which, by the way, I don't think they do at all. I think they bring people in, they make them pretend that they are engaging, and then when they think about running for actual positions of power, no, that's political, we don't do that. I think that's a huge problem. But that's probably why I think actually we conflate the two. I think generation is about class, but that's because within the frame of our structures, it encourages a certain type of person from a certain type of background. So let's not narrow it down onto how we change our structures. Let's think fundamentally about how people organise.
I could chip in. Could I chip in with that?
Ellie just wanted
to... Oh, yeah.
That's all right.
I just wanted to respond to some of this. because again, I'm going to start sounding like a kind of hammer and sickle crazy socialist. But I am a hammer and sickle crazy socialist, so there you go. What can you do? I think it's really, there's a distinction here that I think needs to be made, which is that obviously, as Shiv said, over time things change and they evolve. And obviously, generally speaking, our generation is facing a very different world to the one before. Obviously, that is the case. However, let's be really clear about this, as David Cameron would say. Let me be clear. There is something very different going on at the moment. This government is embarking on an austerity programme, the likes of which have never been seen in any country ever before. This is a very, very untested experiment. It's very dangerous, and it's being wrought by a small group of very, very rich people onto the rest of us. That's what's going on at the moment. And I think, obviously, there's issues with generation in terms of the young will lead it because, for practical reasons, they have more time on their hands, they have fewer responsibilities, and also they want to shape the future world that they will inherit. That's true. But as long as we keep focusing on winning the young people back to politics, we're missing a trick here. The right are going to be pulling the wool over our eyes. They're going to be taking away everything that we've worked hard for, that we've fought for the last 100 years, while we worry about whether this is a generational thing or not. The people who are disenfranchised from politics are not young people. They are the people that don't have a voice. They are the people, that most people in this country who are, whether they define themselves that way or not, working class. And we need to get those people back into politics. Those people are the people who are going to be affected by what's going on at the moment. They're the people who keep the wheels turning of this country. And I don't see, disenfranchised young people. I see a lot of middle-class, well-educated young people who are very engaged with politics, and a lot of working-class young people, working-class middle-aged people, and working-class old people who are not engaged with politics because they have no voice in politics. And if we fail to tackle that, then we will be failing to tackle this austerity experiment that is going to really damage our society in a way that could possibly be irreversible for generations and generations. And that is what we need to be thinking about.
I think I think what Liam was saying was actually really insightful. And that's not to say that other people weren't saying insightful, but let me just draw his point out, which is to say, you said something there. You said, whether people define themselves or not as working class, we should be standing for them. And that really is exactly the problem. Most people don't see themselves. Look, I'm trying to be absolutely honest here. And politics is really about, it's a marketing thing as well, right? You've got to be able to understand other people, to be able to draw out and try and represent them and figure out what they want too, right? And if people don't define themselves as working class because they live in a consumerist culture, they live in something that I guess the vast proportion of people here wouldn't necessarily agree with, but that's how they see their lives. If you then go tell them, hey, you should be this, they're going to, this is what's happened, right? They say, bugger off, right? Don't tell me how to behave. Don't tell me how to live my life. And in fact, young people are the worst at this, right? We are the children of Thatcher in that sense, in terms of our values about freedom. We don't want to be told what to do, which is why young people's structures, or the structures that, generally speaking, younger people have created, have been non-hierarchical, right? They won't want to be told this, that, and the other. So it's a serious problem. It's a really serious problem, but it can be one that can...
Can I come back at something, Ellie?
Tom, can I take another question, and then we'll go straight to you. This lady over here.
I just think that a lot of the panel hasn't really discussed the idea of why people are feeling a bit flat by not joining political discussions. And one of the key things behind that is because we've seen the mainstream politics not address any of our issues, not dream of a better future, and constantly we're told, be realistic. And what is realistic? Because we used to have a history of actually having visions of some sort of society, or good society, we wanted to move towards. And that in itself has made the work, I think Shiv and Ellie are making basically the same point, that there is this marginalisation of society, which is now convinced that the only way that they can actually achieve anything is just by pushing through and ignoring the politicians entirely. And you can see that when you go to door knocking in places like Cardiff, where if you ask people, what are you going to vote? They're going to say no, because there's no point. And we need to get that sort of hope, that idea that we can create a better world, back into the mainstream, and sort of give them a kind of potential world vision that we should be heading towards, not in mainstream politics as well as outside of mainstream politics, and look at local solutions as well as wider solutions and European solutions and global solutions, because that's where the campaigns have been successful, because hope is there. Right now, hope is gone.
Tom, do you agree?
Well, yes, very much I do. I mean, well, 90% I agree. I think there does actually need to be a focus on political parties on this issue, not because anything you said was incorrect, but I think that that problem is actually much bigger within political parties than the rest of societies. I think political parties are much worse at engaging with young people and at listening to their concerns than other organizations. And that shouldn't be the case. You know, they should be the organizations that are trying to create equality rather than ignore it. If you can't, you know, whatever your political class, if you go to a political party, so long as it's not the Tories, and you say, you know, I'm interested in becoming a local councillor, or I want to, you know, stand for Parliament, you'll be listened and you'll be taken seriously, as I say, outside the Tories at least. If you're a young person and you go to be honest, any of the main political parties and you say, I want to be a councillor, the response you get is, what's that? Sorry, did you say something? Have you finished delivering leaflets yet? Here's another bundle, could you go and hand these out? You aren't engaged, you aren't treated as a serious political actor. And that's a problem in my party, and I think that's a problem in all the other parties. I mean, you asked earlier what the Labour leadership have done wrong for engaging with young people. I think the main thing they've done wrong is the same as every party leaderships, and it's actually something they can't help. They've aged 20 years because there aren't any young people at the very top of government. And if you can put someone as desperately immature as George Osborne in charge of the Treasury, then I think you can probably put a few young people around some senior tables making some big decisions.
We have the youngest generation of politicians ever, right? I don't think actually the problem is having more younger people in politics necessarily. It's actually getting them to vote, for God's sake. You know, that'll actually make the damn difference, because then politicians go, ooh, we can buy some votes for these people. What do they want?
But Shiv, I think we need to understand why that's happened. Nishma talked about our dreams. The problem is our dreams have been privatised. Those decisions still happen. It's just they're made by the market. We don't vote in order to make decisions about the housing market because we think that we can make those decisions individually by choosing our house, and we can't. After 2003, just very quickly, when the Bolivians finally forced the IMF back and elected a proper lefty government, there was a great quote from one of the activists who said that they realised after that it wasn't just about replacing the big political structures, it was about gluing their society back together from the bottom up, because they'd been forced into competition with each other, they'd been forced to believe that their individual dreams were what mattered. And I think that Nishma talked about dreams. I think we need to understand what's happened to our dreams, that we need, like in Bolivia, to glue our society back together from the bottom up.
And on the subject of dreams, we are going to have to close it up there, I'm afraid. There will be an opportunity to continue this debate. There is a Campus Youth social immediately after the conference. As soon as it ends, can somebody remember the name of the pub? Will? The Marlborough Arms. I'm told that it's left out of the main entrance and then left again at the end of the road. You can't miss it. And it's cheap as well, so I'm told. So we look forward to welcoming you there, particularly if you are young. Thank you very much, everyone.